There's a moment every person knows. When you're lying in bed at night and suddenly the weight of everything you're carrying feels too heavy for your chest. When loneliness sits so close, it has its own heartbeat. If you're listening to this right now, you know that moment intimately. And if it feels right, tell me where you're listening from, because what I'm about to share has traveled across continents and centuries to reach you tonight. 2,500 years ago, a prince walked away from everything he knew because he couldn't bear watching people suffer. What he discovered in the silence changed everything we know about healing, depression, and loneliness naturally. These aren't just teachings. They're 12 keys that unlock something you've always carried within you. No therapist bills. No side effects. Just gentle, ancient wisdom that works on your timeline, not the world's. Find your quietest space right now. Maybe grab something soft to hold. Because teaching number 6 is going to completely reframe everything you believe about being broken. And here's what no one tells you. Your pain isn't random. It's been guiding you toward this exact moment of healing. Let's discover why together. What if I told you that your deepest pain is actually trying to heal you? Not in some abstract philosophical way, but literally, practically, like medicine working through your system right now. I know that might sound impossible when you're in the thick of it. When depression feels like a heavy blanket you can't throw off. When loneliness echoes in every room you enter. But stay with me here, because what I'm about to share could change everything. There's a universal human experience that transcends age, culture, and circumstance. It's the moment when life strips away something we thought we needed to be okay. Maybe it's a relationship that ends suddenly, a dream that doesn't unfold as planned, a loss that leaves us questioning everything we believed about ourselves. In those moments, we feel broken, like something fundamental has gone wrong with our lives. But what if those moments aren't breakdowns at all? What if they're breakthroughs in disguise? This is what the Buddha discovered 2,500 years ago under that Bodhi tree. He looked directly at suffering and saw something extraordinary. It wasn't punishment. It was information. The Buddha said, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional." What he meant was this: life will bring challenges, losses, disappointments. That's the pain, unavoidable, human, natural. But suffering, that's what happens when we resist the pain, when we make it mean something about our worth, when we let it convince us we're broken. Think about how your body heals a cut. It doesn't judge the wound or feel ashamed of being injured. It simply begins the natural process of healing, sending white blood cells, forming new tissue, gradually closing the gap. Your emotional being has this same innate wisdom. But we've been taught to fear our pain, to numb it, to push it away as quickly as possible. We've learned to see depression as a malfunction rather than a message. Loneliness as a flaw rather than a call toward authentic connection. What if we've had it backwards this whole time? Your body knows how to heal cuts without your conscious intervention. Your heart knows how to heal wounds the same way, naturally, organically, if you let it. But first, you have to stop fighting the healing process. Consider the person who loses something they thought defined them. In the forced stillness that follows, they often discover something profound. Their suffering wasn't random, it had been pointing them toward a life that actually fits their heart. Sometimes, what we call our worst moments become the doorways to everything we've been searching for. This is the first noble truth the Buddha taught. Life contains suffering. But he didn't say this to depress us. He said it to liberate us. Because once you stop being surprised by difficulty, once you stop taking it personally, you can begin to listen to what it's teaching you. Suffering isn't punishment, it's enrollment in wisdom school. And the curriculum is always perfectly designed for what you need to learn. The loneliness you feel, it might be showing you how much you've been hiding your true self to fit in. The depression weighing on your chest, it could be your spirit's way of saying, this life doesn't fit who you really are. Your pain is not your enemy. It's your teacher, and like any good teacher, it keeps showing up until you learn the lesson. But here's what's beautiful about natural healing. You don't have to figure it all out at once. You don't need to analyze every feeling or solve every problem tonight. You just need to stop running from what you're experiencing and start listening to it. When you feel that familiar ache rising in your chest, instead of immediately reaching for a distraction, try this. Place your hand over your heart. Take 3 slow breaths and ask gently, what are you trying to tell me? Don't demand an answer. Don't force clarity. Just listen with the same compassion you'd offer a dear friend who was hurting. Because that's exactly what you're doing, befriending your own pain. The Buddha also taught that everything has Buddha nature, the innate capacity for awakening and wisdom. That includes your suffering. Hidden within every painful experience is a seed of understanding that can transform not just your circumstances, but your entire relationship with life. Throughout history, the greatest transformations have often emerged from the deepest struggles. Not because struggle is necessary for growth, but because struggle has a way of stripping away everything false, everything we think we need to be okay. And in that stripping away, what remains is often more real, more authentic, more aligned with who we truly are. Your suffering is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It's evidence that you're alive, feeling, growing. It's proof that you haven't numbed yourself to the point of spiritual sleep. Think of a broken bone. It hurts terribly when it's healing, but that pain is actually the bone growing back stronger than it was before. Your emotional healing works the same way. The intensity you feel isn't damage, it's regeneration. This doesn't mean you should seek out suffering or glorify pain. It means when suffering arrives, and it will, because you're human, you can meet it differently. with curiosity instead of resistance, with gentleness instead of judgment, with trust that your heart knows how to heal, just like your body knows how to mend a cut. There's an ancient story about a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors said, "How terrible." The farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not." The next day, the horse returned with 3 wild horses. The neighbors exclaimed, "How wonderful." Again, the farmer said, "Maybe so, maybe not." This story reminds us that we rarely know in the moment whether what feels like disaster might actually be redirection, whether what looks like an ending might be a beginning. The most profound healing happens not when we eliminate pain, but when we transform our relationship with it. When we stop seeing it as the enemy and start recognizing it as the teacher. Your pain has been trying to get your attention for a reason. Not to punish you, but to guide you. Not to break you down, but to help you break through to something truer, deeper, more authentically you. The Buddha taught that within every person lies the seed of awakening. Sometimes it takes the fertile ground of difficulty for that seed to sprout. Your struggles aren't obstacles to your peace. They might be the very pathway to it. But what happens when that pain feels endless? When the lessons feel too hard and the healing seems to take forever? Teaching number 2 changes everything about how you understand the temporary nature of all emotional weather. We're about to discover why even your deepest depression is more like a passing storm than a permanent sky. Depression told you it's permanent. Depression lied. Right now, wherever you are, take a moment to step outside mentally and look up at the sky. If you can't see it, imagine it. Notice how it stretches endlessly in every direction, vast and open, and always there. Now notice the weather. Maybe there are clouds today, thick grey ones that block the sun, or light, wispy ones drifting slowly across the blue. Perhaps it's storming where you are, with rain drumming against windows and thunder rolling in the distance. Or maybe it's perfectly clear, sunlight streaming down without obstruction. Here's what's important to understand. The weather is not the sky. The clouds, no matter how dark, cannot damage the sky. The storm, no matter how fierce, cannot diminish the sky's vastness. Even when the weather completely obscures your view, the sky remains untouched, unchanged, eternal. You are like that sky. And your emotions, your sadness, your anxiety, your loneliness, your despair, they are like the weather. This isn't just a pretty metaphor. This is one of the most liberating truths the Buddha ever taught, and it can change your life in the next few minutes if you really hear it. The Buddha called this teaching impermanence, anicca in the ancient language. Everything that arises in your experience will also pass away. Every emotion, every thought, every sensation is temporary by its very nature. But we forget this when we're in the middle of an emotional storm. When depression settles over you like thick fog, it whispers the cruelest lie. This is how it will always be. When anxiety grips your chest, it insists, you'll never feel safe again. When loneliness sits beside you in the dark, it murmurs, no one will ever understand you. But these are not truths. They are simply the voice of temporary weather trying to convince you it's permanent sky. Think about the last time you had a fever. Your body temperature rose, you felt weak and achy, everything seemed overwhelming. But your body's wisdom knew exactly what to do. It didn't fight the fever, it allowed it to run its course. And naturally, organically, without any force or effort on your part, the fever broke. Your temperature returned to normal, your strength came back, the aches faded away. Emotional healing works exactly the same way. Like fever breaking naturally, emotions clear when allowed to move through you without resistance. But we've been taught to fear our emotional weather. We've learned to see sadness as a problem to solve, anxiety as an emergency to fix, loneliness as evidence that something is wrong with us. So, we fight, we resist, we try to force sunshine when what we need is to let the storm pass naturally. Here's the profound shift that changes everything. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness that experiences them. You're not depressed. You're experiencing depression. You're not anxious. You're experiencing anxiety. You're not broken. You're experiencing brokenness. Can you feel the difference? One makes you the victim of your emotions. The other makes you the witness of them. One tells you, this is who you are. The other reminds you, this is what you're going through. When you understand that you are the sky, not the weather, something profound shifts. You stop taking your emotions so personally. You stop believing they define you. You begin to watch them with compassion instead of fear, with curiosity instead of judgment. Let me guide you through a simple practice right now. This is something you can do anywhere, anytime you feel overwhelmed by emotional weather. Find a comfortable position and close your eyes if that feels safe. If not, just soften your gaze. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose. Hold it gently for a moment. Then release it slowly through your mouth, like you're exhaling through a straw. Now, whatever you're feeling right now, sadness, anxiety, numbness, restlessness, don't try to change it. Instead, imagine it as weather moving through the vast sky of your awareness. If you're feeling heavy, imagine that heaviness as thick clouds. See them drifting slowly across your inner sky. If you're feeling restless, picture that energy as wind, strong perhaps, but not destructive. If you're feeling nothing at all, visualize that numbness as a gentle, quiet snow falling softly. Breathe with whatever weather is here. Don't fight it. Don't try to blow the clouds away. Just be the sky that holds it all with infinite space and patience. Notice that no matter what weather is present, you, the awareness watching it, remain calm, spacious, untouched. The clouds cannot hurt the sky. The storm cannot diminish its vastness. And your emotions, no matter how intense, cannot damage the essential you. Stay here for a few more breaths. In, out, watching, allowing, being the sky. Anyone else feeling this shift right now? This gentle remembering that you are so much vaster than whatever you're experiencing. Drop a comment if this is landing for you. There's something powerful about recognizing we're all learning to be the sky together. The Buddha taught this truth through his own experience. Even after his awakening, he still experienced the full range of human emotions. He felt sadness when loved ones died. He experienced physical pain when he was ill. He felt disappointment when people couldn't understand his teachings. But he never forgot that these experiences were weather, not his true nature. This understanding doesn't make you cold or detached. It makes you free. Free to feel fully without drowning. Free to experience sadness without becoming sadness. Free to move through difficult emotions without being defined by them. Think about the ocean during a storm. The surface might be churning with massive waves, chaotic and violent. But dive down just a few feet and you'll find calm, steady currents. Go deeper still, and there's profound stillness, untouched by whatever chaos might be happening above. Your emotional storms happen at the surface, but deeper within you, there's always calm, always stillness, always peace. And the more you practice being the sky instead of the weather, the easier it becomes to access that deeper calm, even in the middle of difficult emotions. This doesn't mean you should suppress your feelings or pretend they don't matter. Your emotions carry important information. They deserve to be felt, acknowledged, honored. But they don't deserve to be your master. When sadness comes, welcome it. Feel it fully. Let it move through you like rain through the sky. When anxiety arrives, breathe with it. Give it space to exist without letting it convince you that danger is everywhere. When loneliness sits with you, offer it compassion. Let it remind you of your deep need for connection without believing it means you're fundamentally alone. There's an ancient Buddhist teaching that says, "This too shall pass." 4 simple words that contain infinite wisdom. When you're in joy, remember, this too shall pass, so savor it fully. When you're in pain, remember, this too shall pass, so you don't need to fear, it will last forever. Your depression will lift, just like fog burns off in the morning sun. Your anxiety will settle, just like choppy waters smooth out after a storm. Your loneliness will ease, just like winter always gives way to spring. But you don't have to wait for the weather to change to feel peace. Peace is always available in your recognition that you are the sky, vast, open, unchanging, no matter what temporary conditions are moving through you. The next time you feel overwhelmed by emotion, try this simple shift in language. Instead of saying, "I am sad," say, "Sadness is visiting me." Instead of, "I am anxious," try, "Anxiety is moving through me." Instead of, "I am depressed," practice, "Depression is here, right now." This isn't just semantics. It's a fundamental shift in identity that can transform your entire experience of difficult emotions. You stop being the victim of your inner weather and become the compassionate witness of it. Speaking of things that feel permanent but aren't, there's another experience that often convinces us we're fundamentally alone in the world. But what if loneliness isn't actually the problem we think it is? What if it's been trying to guide us towards something beautiful all along? Teaching number 3 reveals the hidden gift waiting inside your loneliest moments. Loneliness isn't emptiness, it's spaciousness, waiting to be filled. I know that might sound impossible when you're sitting in that familiar ache. When silence feels so heavy, it has its own weight. When you're surrounded by people, but still feel like you're speaking a language no one understands. But what if everything you've been told about loneliness is backwards? What if the very thing you've been trying to escape is actually trying to lead you home? There's a profound difference between being alone and being lonely. And understanding this difference can transform one of your most painful experiences into one of your most sacred. 2,500 years ago, a young prince made a choice that puzzled everyone around him. He had everything: wealth, comfort, people who would cater to his every need. Yet, he walked away from it all to sit alone in the forest. For 6 years, he lived in solitude, not because he was running from people, but because he was seeking something deeper than human connection could provide. In that profound aloneness, he discovered something extraordinary. The peace he'd been searching for wasn't hidden in crowded palaces or busy marketplaces. It was waiting in the silence within himself. This wasn't antisocial behavior or depression. This was the recognition that before you can truly connect with others, you must first learn to be genuinely present with yourself. Nature understands this principle intimately. Seeds germinate in the dark silence of soil. Trees grow strongest when they have space to spread their roots without crowding. Even the most social animals retreat periodically to rest, reflect, and restore themselves in solitude. Nature heals in silence, and so do human hearts. But we live in a world that's forgotten this wisdom. We've been taught that being alone means something's wrong with us. That solitude is punishment rather than medicine. We fill every quiet moment with noise, every empty space with distraction, every pause with busyness. And then we wonder why we feel so disconnected, even when we're never actually alone. The loneliness you feel isn't a sign that you're broken or unwanted. It's your inner wisdom calling you back to yourself. It's an invitation to come home to the one relationship that will never leave you, the relationship with your own presence. Think about what loneliness actually feels like in your body. There's often a hollow sensation in your chest, isn't there? A sense of space that feels empty, aching to be filled. But what if that space isn't empty at all? What if it's spacious? There's a profound difference between emptiness and spaciousness. Emptiness feels lacking, desperate, hungry. Spaciousness feels open, peaceful, full of potential. The same physical sensation can be experienced in completely different ways, depending on how you relate to it. When you're feeling lonely, instead of immediately reaching for your phone or planning your next social interaction, try this. Sit quietly with that sensation in your chest. Breathe into it gently. Instead of calling it emptiness, call it spaciousness. Instead of seeing it as something that needs to be filled from the outside, recognize it as room for your own presence to expand. The cure for loneliness isn't more people, it's more presence. This is one of the most counterintuitive truths you'll ever hear, but it's also one of the most liberating. When you learn to be genuinely present with yourself, when you discover that your own company can be nourishing rather than torturous, something magical happens. You stop being desperate for connection and start being available for it. There's a world of difference between connecting with people because you need them to fill your emptiness and connecting because you have presence to share. One comes from lack, the other from abundance. One leads to clingy, anxious relationships. The other creates space for genuine intimacy. But how do you learn to befriend your own solitude? How do you transform loneliness from enemy to ally? It starts with changing the story you tell yourself about being alone. Instead of, "No one wants to be with me," try, "I'm learning to enjoy my own company." Instead of, "I'm so lonely," practice, "I'm discovering what it means to be present with myself." Here's a gentle practice you can try right now. The next time you find yourself alone, instead of immediately reaching for entertainment or distraction, pause. Look around the space you're in as if you're seeing it for the first time. Notice 5 things you can see. Really see them, not just glance at them. Notice 4 things you can touch: the texture of your clothes, the temperature of the air on your skin. Notice 3 things you can hear. Maybe it's traffic outside, or the hum of appliances, or the sound of your own breathing. Notice 2 things you can smell. Notice 1 thing you can taste. This simple exercise brings you fully into the present moment, where loneliness cannot survive. Because loneliness lives in stories about the past or worries about the future. It cannot exist in the fullness of now. The Buddha taught that one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is what he called noble solitude. This isn't isolation or withdrawal from life. It's the conscious choice to spend time with yourself without agenda, without trying to fix or improve anything, just being present with what is. In noble solitude, you begin to hear the quiet voice of your own wisdom. You start to notice patterns in your thoughts and feelings that you miss when you're constantly surrounded by external stimulation. You discover interests and desires that are truly yours, not influenced by what others expect or want from you. This doesn't mean becoming a hermit. It means learning to be as comfortable alone as you are with others. It means discovering that solitude can be restorative rather than punishing. Many people are afraid of being alone because they're afraid of what they might find there. What if I'm boring? What if I don't like myself? What if the silence reveals how empty I really am? But these fears are based on a misunderstanding. You're not empty. You're full of conditioning, full of other people's voices, full of stories about who you should be. Solitude doesn't reveal emptiness. It reveals authenticity. When you strip away the noise, when you sit in genuine silence with yourself, what emerges isn't emptiness but essence. The real you, underneath all the performance and pretending. And that real you is never boring. That real you is never empty. That real you is what you've been longing to connect with all along. The loneliness you feel is often your authentic self calling out, saying, "Remember me. Come back to me. I've been waiting here patiently while you searched everywhere else." This is why solitude can feel threatening at first. It asks you to meet yourself without distraction, without the masks you wear in social situations. It invites you to be real in a way that might feel vulnerable and unfamiliar. But here's what's beautiful about natural healing. It happens gradually, gently, at your own pace. You don't have to dive into deep solitude all at once. Start small. Spend 5 minutes in the morning sitting quietly before checking your phone. Take a short walk without music or podcasts. Eat a meal in silence, really tasting your food. Notice that these moments don't diminish you, they expand you. They don't make you lonelier, they make you more present. They don't isolate you from the world, they help you show up more authentically when you do connect with others. The Buddha spent those 6 years in the forest not because he disliked people, but because he understood something profound. The quality of your relationship with others can never exceed the quality of your relationship with yourself. When you're at peace in your own company, you stop using relationships to escape yourself. You start using them to express yourself. When you're comfortable in solitude, you stop settling for connections that drain you just to avoid being alone. You start choosing relationships that nourish and inspire you. Loneliness, when approached with awareness, becomes a doorway to the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with your own presence. And from that foundation of self-companionship, all other relationships become richer, more authentic, more fulfilling. Your loneliness isn't punishment for being unlovable. It's an invitation to discover that you've never been alone at all. You've always had yourself. You've always had this moment. You've always had your breath, your awareness, your capacity to be present. The spaciousness you feel in loneliness isn't waiting to be filled by someone else. It's waiting to be recognized as the natural state of your open heart. Now that solitude feels different, now that loneliness has revealed itself as a teacher rather than a tormentor. Let's address what keeps us stuck in patterns that no longer serve us. Because there's something we hold on to even tighter than our need for company. Teaching number 4 reveals why your greatest source of suffering might be your unwillingness to let go of what's already leaving. You're not holding on because you're strong. You're holding on because you're scared. There's a difference, though it might not feel like one, when your fingers are wrapped so tightly around something that's already slipping away. When your heart is clinging to a relationship that's clearly ending. When your mind is replaying a conversation from last week, trying to change words that have already been spoken. When you're gripping an identity that no longer fits who you're becoming. The Buddha discovered something profound about human suffering. Most of it doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from our relationship to what happens to us. Specifically, our desperate need to hold on to what is naturally designed to flow. Imagine you're holding a rope. On the other end, life is pulling, gently at first, then with increasing force. The rope represents everything you think you need to be okay. That person who might leave, that job that might not work out, that version of yourself you've worked so hard to maintain, that future you've planned down to the smallest detail. As life pulls the rope in a different direction, you grip tighter. Your knuckles turn white. Your palms begin to burn. The harder you hold on, the more it hurts. But you tell yourself, this pain means you care, that loosening your grip would mean giving up, that letting go equals failure. Here's what you don't realize. The rope burn isn't coming from life pulling the rope away. It's coming from your refusal to release your grip. In autumn, trees perform one of nature's most beautiful acts of letting go. They don't cling to their leaves out of fear that winter will be too harsh. They don't hold on because they're attached to how beautiful they looked in summer. They simply release what no longer serves them, trusting that this apparent loss is actually preparation for new growth. Trees shed leaves naturally, and we can shed attachments with the same organic wisdom. But we've forgotten how to let go gracefully. We've been taught that holding on means strength, that persistence always pays off, that quitting is for losers. So we grip and grasp and strain against the natural flow of life until we're exhausted, bitter, and convinced that the universe is working against us. The truth is more gentle and more liberating than you might imagine. Letting go isn't loss, it's liberation. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on things that matter to you. It means learning the difference between holding and strangling, between commitment and attachment, between love and possession. Attachment, in Buddhist understanding, is the desperate clinging that says, "This must never change." Love, on the other hand, says, I care deeply about this, and because I care, I want what's truly best for it, even if that means it needs to grow beyond me. When you're attached to someone, you try to control their choices to keep them close. When you love someone, you support their authentic path, even when it leads them away from you. Attachment contracts with fear. Love expands with trust. The same principle applies to everything you think you need to be happy. Your career, your health, your plans, your image of yourself. When you hold these things with attachment, you suffer whenever they change. But when you hold them with appreciation instead of desperation, you can engage fully while remaining free. Here's a gentle practice that can transform your relationship with letting go. Think of something you're currently holding on to that might be ready to release. Maybe it's resentment towards someone who hurt you, or anxiety about an outcome you can't control, or an old version of yourself that no longer fits. Place your hands in front of you, palms up, as if you're cradling this attachment. Feel its weight. Notice how tired your arms get when you hold something for too long. Now, take a slow, deep breath and imagine this attachment as a bird resting in your open palms. The bird represents whatever you've been clinging to. As you breathe out, visualize the bird gently lifting off and flying away. You're not throwing it away or pushing it out of your life. You're simply opening your hands and allowing it to fly if it chooses to. Notice that your hands are now empty, but they're also free. Free to receive something new. Free to hold something else when the time is right. Free to rest without constantly gripping. This is what healthy letting go feels like, not violent or forced, but gentle and natural. Like leaves falling from a tree, like breath flowing out of your lungs, like a river finding its way to the sea. But why is letting go so terrifying? Why does every cell in your body seem to resist it? Because attachment promises certainty in an uncertain world. It whispers, if you can just control this one thing, you'll be safe. But this is an illusion. The only certainty in life is change itself. The only security comes from learning to dance with uncertainty rather than fight it. Think about water flowing down a mountain. It doesn't struggle against the rocks in its path. It flows around them. It doesn't try to push the riverbank wider. It follows the natural course. It doesn't resist the pull of gravity. It surrenders to it and finds its power in that surrender. This is the natural way of healing and growth. Not through force or control, but through trust and flow. There's a profound tenderness that emerges when you stop fighting what's trying to leave your life. You begin to see that holding on so tightly was never about love. It was about fear. Fear that you're not strong enough to handle loss. Fear that you won't be okay without this particular person or situation or identity. Fear that letting go means you never cared in the first place. But caring and clinging are not the same thing. You can love someone deeply while giving them freedom to choose their own path. You can value something precious while holding it lightly. You can commit fully to what's present while remaining open to what wants to emerge. When you practice letting go, you're not becoming cold or indifferent. You're becoming wise. You're learning to trust the natural intelligence of life itself, the same intelligence that grows your hair and heals your cuts and beats your heart without any conscious effort from you. This intelligence knows when it's time for things to change. It knows when relationships have run their course, when chapters need to end, when old skins need to be shed for new growth to happen. Fighting this natural process is like trying to stop the seasons from changing, exhausting, and ultimately futile. But here's what happens when you align with life's rhythm instead of resisting it. Space opens up. Possibility appears. Energy that was tied up in holding on becomes available for new experiences. Every ending contains a beginning. Every loss creates room for something different to enter. But you can't receive the new gift while your hands are still gripping the old one. Letting go is not about not caring. It's about caring so much that you want truth more than comfort, growth more than security, love more than possession. It's about trusting that you are resilient enough to handle whatever comes next. And you are. More resilient than you know. Stronger than your attachments. Vaster than your need to control. The Buddha taught that all suffering comes from attachment to the impermanent. But he also taught that liberation comes from recognizing the impermanence and learning to flow with it rather than fight it. This doesn't happen overnight. Letting go is a practice, not a one-time event. Some days, you'll grip tightly out of habit or fear. Other days, you'll remember to open your hands and trust the process. Both are part of the journey. Be patient with yourself as you learn this new way of being. Be gentle with the parts of you that are afraid to let go. They've been trying to protect you in the only way they know how. When we release our death grip on how we think life should unfold, we create space for something magical to happen. We discover that peace doesn't come from getting what we want, it comes from wanting what is. And what is, in this very moment, is always enough when we're not demanding it be different. Next, we'll explore where true peace actually lives, and it's closer than you think. Peace isn't hiding in your future, it's been waiting in your breath. Right now, as you listen to these words, peace is available to you. Not when you finish this audio, not when you solve your problems, not when you feel better or figure everything out. Right here, in this moment, as air moves gently in and out of your lungs. But your mind has convinced you otherwise, hasn't it? It's told you that peace is something you earn, something you achieve, something waiting at the end of a very long to-do list. Your mind has been a time traveler, pulling you into yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's worries, anywhere but the only place life is actually happening. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Your mind can only create suffering when it's somewhere other than now. Anxiety lives in tomorrow. It feeds on what-if scenarios and imagined disasters that haven't happened and may never happen. Depression lives in yesterday. It dwells on what went wrong, what was lost, what can never be changed. But peace lives in now. Every cell in your body regenerates in the present moment, and so does peace. Not through thinking about peace or planning for peace, but through arriving here, wherever here is for you, right now. Take a moment to notice where you are. Really notice, as if you're seeing this space for the first time. Feel the surface beneath you. Is it soft, firm, warm, cool? Listen to the sounds around you without trying to label or judge them. Maybe there's traffic outside, or the hum of electricity, or the sound of your own heartbeat if you listen closely enough. Feel the air against your skin. Notice the temperature, the subtle movement of air currents you might normally ignore. This is presence. This is the medicine your anxious mind has been desperately seeking everywhere except where it actually lives. The Buddha spent years studying with different teachers, practicing extreme disciplines, searching for enlightenment in elaborate techniques and complex philosophies. But his awakening came in the simplest possible way, by sitting still and being completely present with what was happening in that moment. Under the Bodhi tree, he stopped trying to get somewhere else and finally arrived where he had always been. This is the profound healing available to you right now. Not through changing your circumstances, not through fixing your past or controlling your future, but through fully inhabiting this moment. Let me guide you through a simple practice that can shift your entire nervous system in just a few minutes. It's something you can do anywhere, anytime you feel pulled away from peace. Find something warm to drink if you can. Tea, coffee, even a glass of warm water. If you don't have anything warm nearby, that's perfectly fine. Just imagine holding a warm cup in your hands. First, before you take a sip, simply hold the cup and feel its warmth. Notice how the heat travels through the ceramic or glass into your palms. Let your fingers wrap around the cup, feeling each point of contact. This is your anchor to the present moment. Now bring the cup close to your face. Breathe in the steam and notice any scent. Maybe it's the earthy richness of tea, the roasted warmth of coffee, or simply the clean smell of warm water. Let your eyes soften as you watch the steam rise and curl in patterns that will never repeat exactly the same way again. Take a small sip and let the liquid rest on your tongue for a moment before swallowing. Feel the warmth as it travels down your throat. Notice how your body receives this simple gift of warmth and nourishment. As you continue to drink slowly, pay attention to how each sip is slightly different. The temperature might change. The flavor might shift. Your experience of it deepens with attention. This is meditation. Not something exotic or complicated, but this simple act of being fully present with a basic human experience. And notice, in these moments of complete presence, where are your worries? Where is your anxiety about tomorrow or your sadness about yesterday? They can't exist here. Not because you've pushed them away, but because presence naturally dissolves the stories that create suffering. Your mind will resist this at first. It will tell you this is boring, that you have important things to think about, that you can't afford to just sit and drink tea when there are problems to solve. But that voice is the same one that's been keeping you trapped in cycles of anxiety and depression. It's the voice that's convinced you peace is always somewhere else. What if you didn't have to believe that voice? What if you could thank it for trying to help, and then gently return your attention to the warmth in your hands, the breath in your lungs, the life flowing through your body right now? The present moment isn't just where peace lives, it's where healing happens. Your body can only repair itself now. Your heart can only open now. Your mind can only find clarity now. All the therapy in the world, all the planning and analyzing and figuring out can only ever happen in present moments. But we've been trained to think that now isn't enough. We've learned to live in a constant state of postponement. I'll be happy when, I'll feel peaceful if, I'll be okay once. This postponement is a form of violence against your own life. It tells you that this moment, the only moment you actually have, is somehow insufficient. The Buddha taught that this is one of our deepest delusions. He called it the hungry ghost realm, always consuming, never satisfied, because we're looking for fulfillment in the wrong place. We're trying to feed the soul with thoughts about life instead of life itself. But life itself is happening right here, in the sensation of your clothes against your skin, in the rhythm of your breathing, in the way light and shadow play across whatever you're looking at. This isn't just preliminary to your real life. This is your real life. When you truly understand this, everything changes. You stop waiting for permission to be peaceful. You stop believing that you need to earn the right to feel okay. You realize that presence is always available, regardless of your circumstances. This doesn't mean you become passive or stop caring about your future. It means you stop sacrificing your present for an imaginary future that may never arrive the way you expect it to. It means you learn to plan from presence rather than anxiety, to work from peace rather than desperation. And here's what's beautiful about natural healing. Your nervous system knows the difference. When you act from presence, your body relaxes. Your breath deepens. Your heart rate slows. Your immune system strengthens. You're not just feeling better emotionally, you're actually becoming healthier at a cellular level. Presence is medicine. Not the kind that numbs or masks symptoms, but the kind that addresses the root cause of suffering, the belief that peace is somewhere other than here. Try this throughout your day. Every time you catch your mind traveling to the past or future, Gently bring it back by noticing something in your immediate environment. The texture of the surface you're touching, the temperature of the air, the sounds around you, the feeling of your feet on the ground. These aren't just mindfulness exercises, they're invitations back to life. Back to the only moment where peace, healing, and transformation can actually occur. The more you practice returning to now, the more you realize that you don't need to fix your life to be at peace. You need to be at peace to see your life clearly. And from that clarity, whatever needs to be done becomes obvious. Whatever needs to heal begins healing naturally. Your breath has been with you for every moment of your life, patiently waiting for you to notice it. Your heart has been beating steadily, asking for nothing but offering everything. The present moment has been here all along, holding space for your return. Peace isn't something you achieve. It's something you remember. And what you remember changes everything you believe about what it means to be broken, which brings us to perhaps the most revolutionary understanding of all. What you've always called your greatest weakness might actually be your strength breaking through the cracks. What you call falling apart is actually falling together. I know that sounds impossible when you're lying awake at 3 a.m, feeling like every piece of your life is scattered across the floor. When you look in the mirror and see someone you barely recognize, when the person you used to be feels like a stranger and the person you're becoming feels terrifyingly unclear. But what if everything you've been taught about brokenness is backwards? What if the moments when you feel most shattered are actually the moments when you're becoming most whole? There's a flower that grows in the muddiest, darkest waters you can imagine. Its roots reach deep into thick, black mud that would suffocate most plants. For months, this seed sits in absolute darkness, surrounded by decay and debris, with no sign that anything beautiful could ever emerge from such conditions. But then, something miraculous happens. A tiny shoot pushes through the mud, feeling its way blindly upward through murky water. It doesn't know where it's going. It can't see the surface. It only knows it must rise. When it finally breaks through the water's surface, something extraordinary unfolds. Petal by petal, the lotus opens into one of the most perfect flowers nature has ever created. Pure white petals that seem to glow with their own light. Not despite the mud it grew from, but because of it. The mud didn't contaminate the lotus. The mud nourished it. You are that lotus. And everything you call your mud, your depression, your anxiety, your trauma, your failures, your moments of complete breakdown, is actually the rich soil from which your awakening grows. This isn't spiritual bypassing or pretty metaphors to make pain feel better. This is the actual process of human transformation, and it's been happening for millions of years. Think about how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. It doesn't simply grow wings and learn to fly. First, it must literally dissolve. Inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar's body breaks down completely into what scientists call soup. For days, there's nothing but liquid where a caterpillar used to be. If you could peek inside that chrysalis during the dissolution, you might think something terrible was happening. You might think the caterpillar was dying, that the process had gone wrong, that this complete breaking down was evidence of failure. But hidden within that soup are clusters of cells called imaginal cells. They carry the blueprint for something entirely new. The caterpillar doesn't become a better caterpillar. It becomes something completely different, a creature of the air instead of the ground, beauty instead of simplicity, flight instead of crawling. Caterpillars must dissolve to become butterflies. And sometimes, humans must fall apart to become who they're meant to be. Your breakdown is your breakthrough in disguise. The moments when you feel most lost, most confused, most like you're dissolving into soup, these aren't evidence that you're failing. They're evidence that your imaginal cells are finally getting space to create something new. Something that couldn't emerge while you were still holding tightly to who you thought you had to be. This is what the Buddha discovered during his own dark night. Before his awakening, he experienced what we might now call a complete mental breakdown. He left everything familiar, spent years in extreme practices that nearly killed him, and finally sat under a tree feeling like he had failed at everything he'd ever tried. But in that moment of complete surrender, when he stopped trying to become enlightened and simply allowed himself to be exactly where he was, awakening dawned. Not because he had fixed himself, but because he had finally stopped fighting the breaking open that was trying to happen. There's an ancient Japanese art called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks or throwing away the broken pieces, artisans highlight the fractures with precious metal. The result is more beautiful than the original, more valuable, more treasured. The cracks become the most beautiful part. Your cracks, the places where life has broken you open, these aren't flaws to be hidden. They're where the light gets in. They're where your true beauty shows through. They're proof that you've lived, felt deeply, cared enough to be vulnerable to pain. And here's what nobody tells you about the breaking open process. It's not random. Your nervous system, your psyche, your entire being has an innate wisdom about what needs to break down for what wants to emerge. The identity that's crumbling, it was probably built on other people's expectations anyway. The relationship that's ending, it may have stopped nourishing your authentic growth long ago. The career that's not working, perhaps your heart has been trying to tell you it's time for something that actually fits who you're becoming. Your breakdown isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. But I know it doesn't feel that way when you're in the middle of it. When you can't sleep because your mind won't stop racing. When you look at your life and nothing makes sense anymore. When you feel like everyone else has figured out how to be human and you're still struggling with the basics. Here's what I want you to know. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're not doing life wrong. You're exactly where you need to be for your unique awakening to unfold. Some people awaken gradually, like a slow sunrise. Others awaken suddenly, like lightning illuminating a dark landscape. But many of us awaken through breaking, through the slow or sudden dissolution of everything we thought we needed to be okay. This breaking is not punishment. It's not evidence that you're weak or damaged or beyond repair. It's the most natural process in the universe, the way consciousness evolves, the way wisdom emerges, the way love learns to express itself more fully through human experience. Think about how a seed breaks open underground. If you could hear it happening, it might sound violent, the hard shell cracking, the tender shoot forcing its way through. But this isn't destruction. This is birth. The seed doesn't break because something is wrong with it. It breaks because something is finally ready to grow. You are breaking open because something in you is ready to grow. Something that couldn't emerge while you were still contained in your old shell. Something more authentic, more aligned, more truly you than you've ever been able to be before. The depression that feels so heavy. It might be your psyche's way of slowing you down enough to listen to what your heart has been trying to tell you. The anxiety that won't stop. It could be excitement about who you're becoming, filtered through old patterns of fear. The loneliness that aches so deeply. Perhaps it's clearing space for a more authentic way of connecting with yourself and others. Every symptom of your breaking down might actually be a symptom of your breaking through. This doesn't mean you should stop seeking support or avoid taking care of your mental health. It means you can seek help from a place of empowerment rather than pathology. You can get support for your awakening process instead of just trying to get back to who you used to be. Because who you used to be might have been beautiful, but who you're becoming is your birthright. The Buddha taught that everyone has Buddha nature, the innate potential for awakening that can never be damaged or destroyed. Your Buddha nature doesn't care about your mistakes, your trauma, your mental health diagnoses, or how many times you felt like giving up. It's been waiting patiently your entire life for the right conditions to emerge. Sometimes, those conditions look like success and happiness. But often, they look like breakdown and dissolution. Often, it takes the composting of who we thought we were to create the rich soil for who we actually are. Your awakening doesn't require you to be perfect. It requires you to be real. And real includes broken, confused, struggling, and completely unsure of what comes next. Real includes the parts of you that feel unlovable, the experiences that feel unredeemable, the pain that feels too much to bear. All of it. Every piece. Nothing left out. Nothing rejected. When you stop trying to put yourself back together the way you were and start trusting the way you're naturally reorganizing, something magical happens. You discover that you're not breaking down randomly, you're breaking open systematically. What's falling away was never truly yours to begin with. What's emerging has been waiting your whole life to be born. Look around at nature during spring. Nothing apologizes for breaking through the earth. Nothing feels embarrassed about pushing through concrete or sprouting from dead wood. Life breaks through everywhere it needs to, in its own timing, in its own way. You are nature. This breaking through you're experiencing, it's not a malfunction. It's life itself, consciousness itself, love itself, finding a way to express more fully through your unique human experience. Your cracks aren't flaws. They're fault lines where new worlds are being born. Your breakdown isn't evidence of weakness. It's evidence that you're brave enough to let something old die so something new can live. This awakening process reveals something you've always had, but may have forgotten, an unbreakable core that remains steady no matter what storms pass through your life. A peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. A love that includes even your most difficult moments. A strength that grows not from avoiding brokenness, but from learning to be whole within it. You're not falling apart. You're falling into truth. And that truth is about to show you something extraordinary about where real love begins. You've been looking for love in all the wrong places, including the mirror. Every morning, you wake up and immediately start the audit. Am I good enough today? Did I accomplish enough yesterday? Do I look acceptable? Am I worthy of love today, or do I need to earn it first? And then you spend the rest of your day trying to collect evidence of your worthiness from a world that's often too busy running its own worthiness audit to notice yours. But here's what no one tells you about love. It's not something you find. It's not something you earn. It's not even something you attract. Love is something you are, and it begins with how you treat the person in the mirror. The Buddha taught something revolutionary about love 2,500 years ago. He said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Not after you fix yourself. Not when you achieve your goals. Not if you become the person you think you should be. Right now, exactly as you are, with all your flaws and fears and imperfections. This isn't self-help advice or positive thinking. This is spiritual medicine. Because here's what happens when you don't love yourself. You become a bottomless well. No amount of external love can fill a heart that's constantly rejecting itself. You'll seek validation from others to prove you're worthy, but their love will feel hollow because you know they don't see the real you, the parts you've hidden, the shame you carry, the mistakes you can't forgive. You can't pour from an empty cup, so fill yourself first. Not with ego or arrogance, but with the same tenderness you'd offer a dear friend who was struggling. Think about how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake. The voice in your head that immediately jumps to judgment. How could you be so stupid? You always mess things up. No wonder nobody loves you. Now imagine speaking that way to a child who had stumbled while learning to walk. You'd be horrified, wouldn't you? You'd immediately soften, offer comfort, encourage them to try again. That child still lives inside you. The one who's still learning, still stumbling, still trying to figure out how to be human in a complicated world. And that child deserves the same compassion you'd offer any other child who was doing their best. Self-compassion isn't weakness. It's the foundation that everything else builds on. When you learn to be kind to yourself, you stop needing others to validate your worth. When you fill your own cup with love, you can offer authentic love to others instead of seeking it desperately. When you heal the relationship with yourself, every other relationship in your life transforms. But how do you love someone you've been criticizing for years? How do you offer compassion to the person who knows all your worst thoughts and secret failures? The same way you'd love anyone else, one gentle moment at a time. Let me guide you through an ancient practice that can begin healing this relationship right now. This is called metta meditation, or loving kindness meditation, and it's been transforming hearts for thousands of years. Find a comfortable position and close your eyes if that feels safe, or just soften your gaze downward. Place one hand on your chest, over your heart. Feel the steady rhythm of your heartbeat, this heart that's been with you every moment of your life, never asking for anything, always giving. Take a slow, deep breath and imagine sending love directly to your own heart. Start with these simple phrases, saying them silently to yourself with as much genuine warmth as you can muster. May I be happy. Let those words settle into your heart like warm honey. May I be healthy. Feel the wish for your own well-being. May I be safe. Offer yourself the same protection you'd want for someone you love. May I live with ease. Give yourself permission to have a life that flows with grace rather than constant struggle. If this feels strange or forced at first, that's completely normal. You might notice resistance, a voice that says you don't deserve these good wishes. That's just old conditioning talking. Keep going anyway. You're not trying to feel anything in particular. You're just planting seeds of kindness in the soil of your own heart. Repeat these phrases several more times. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Notice if there's even the slightest softening happening. Maybe in your jaw, your shoulders, your chest. This is your nervous system beginning to remember what it feels like to be on your own side. Stop trying to earn love. You were born worthy of it. This isn't about becoming perfect or fixing all your flaws before you're allowed to love yourself. This is about recognizing that your worthiness isn't performance-based. You didn't have to earn the right to breathe when you were born. You don't have to earn the right to be treated with kindness, especially by yourself. Think about the people you love most in your life. Do you love them because they never make mistakes? Do you withdraw your love when they're struggling or having a bad day? Of course not. You love them because they exist, because they're uniquely themselves, because their presence matters to you. You deserve that same unconditional love from yourself. But loving yourself doesn't mean approving of everything you do or never wanting to grow. It means treating yourself with the same basic kindness you'd offer a good friend. When a friend makes a mistake, you don't stop loving them, you support them through it. When they're struggling, you don't abandon them, you show up with compassion. Self-love is showing up for yourself in the same way. It's putting your hand on your heart when you're anxious and saying, "This is hard right now, and that's okay." It's speaking to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you care about deeply. It's giving yourself permission to be human, messy, imperfect, still learning, still growing. Here's a simple practice you can use throughout your day. Whenever you catch yourself in self-criticism, pause and ask, what would I say to a dear friend going through this same experience? Then say those words to yourself. Instead of, "I'm such an idiot for making that mistake," try, "Everyone makes mistakes. This is how I learn." Instead of, "I look terrible today," practice, "I'm doing my best, and that's enough." Instead of "Nobody could love someone like me," whisper, "I am learning to love myself, and that changes everything." This might feel awkward at first, like speaking a foreign language. That's because for many of us, self-compassion is a foreign language. We've been fluent in self-criticism for so long that kindness toward ourselves feels unfamiliar, even suspicious. But just like learning any new language, the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And as self-compassion becomes your native tongue, something beautiful happens. You stop seeking validation from others because you're no longer rejecting yourself. You stop settling for crumbs of affection because you know what it feels like to be truly nourished. Your body knows how to heal a cut without your conscious effort. Your heart knows how to heal emotional wounds the same way, but only when you stop picking at them with self-hatred. Self-love isn't indulgence. It's medicine. It's creating the internal conditions where natural healing can occur. When you love yourself, you make better choices because you want what's truly good for someone you care about. You set healthier boundaries because you value your own well-being. You pursue dreams that align with your authentic desires rather than chasing approval. You attract people who can love you authentically because you're no longer hiding behind masks. This doesn't happen overnight. Self-love is a practice, not a destination. Some days, you'll remember to be kind to yourself. Other days, you'll fall back into old patterns of self-criticism. Both are part of the journey. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. It's catching yourself in self-judgment a little sooner each time. It's speaking to yourself with slightly more kindness today than you did yesterday. It's slowly, gently changing the voice in your head from critic to companion. As you continue practicing loving kindness throughout your day, extend it beyond yourself. Send the same good wishes to people you love. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Then, when you're ready, try extending it to neutral people, the cashier at the store, a stranger on the bus. Eventually, you might even send loving kindness to difficult people in your life. Not because they deserve it more than you do, but because you deserve the freedom that comes from releasing resentment. But it all starts with you, with the radical act of being on your own side, with choosing to speak to yourself the way love would speak, with recognizing that the love you've been seeking everywhere else has been waiting patiently in your own heart all along. The ancient texts say that a person who truly loves themselves becomes like a mother bird who gathers her chicks safely under her wings. You become a source of protection and comfort for your own tender places. You become the safe harbor your own heart has been seeking. And from that foundation of self-love, you can face anything life brings. Not because you're invincible, but because you're no longer afraid of your own experience. You know that whatever arises, joy or sorrow, success or failure, acceptance or rejection, you'll meet it with the same compassion you'd offer someone you love deeply. With self-love as your foundation, you develop the courage to sit with difficult emotions without running away. Because when you're not fighting yourself, you have energy to be present with whatever life is teaching you. The way out of pain isn't around it, it's through it. Every instinct in your body tells you the opposite. When emotional pain arises, your nervous system immediately goes into escape mode. Fight it, flee from it, numb it, distract yourself until it goes away. We reach for our phones, our work, our addictions, anything that promises relief from the intensity of what we're feeling. But here's what no one teaches you. Your avoidance is often more painful than the pain itself. Think about how your body processes food. You don't consciously direct your stomach to break down nutrients or tell your intestines to absorb vitamins. Your body has an innate intelligence that knows exactly how to transform what you consume into energy and healing. Your heart knows how to process pain the same way, naturally, organically, if you let it. But we've been taught to fear our own emotional digestive system. We've learned to see difficult feelings as emergencies rather than information. We've forgotten that the same intelligence that heals your cuts and fights infections also knows how to metabolize grief, anxiety, loneliness, and heartbreak. The Buddha discovered this truth in the most practical way possible. He didn't theorize about suffering, he sat with it. Under the Bodhi tree, when waves of doubt, fear, and temptation arose, he didn't run. He didn't fight. He simply remained present, breathing with whatever came up, allowing his awareness to hold it all. What he learned changed everything. Resistance is pain's accomplice, but presence is pain's healer. When you resist emotional pain, you create a secondary layer of suffering. The original pain, let's say it's grief over a loss, might feel like a heavy weight in your chest. But when you resist that grief, when you tell yourself you shouldn't feel this way or try to push it down, you add the pain of fighting yourself to the original pain of loss. Now you're not just grieving. You're grieving and fighting your grief, and feeling ashamed of your grief, and exhausted from battling your own heart. The original pain gets buried under layers of resistance until you can't even access what you're actually feeling anymore. But what happens when you stop fighting? When you turn toward the pain with the same gentle attention you'd give a crying child? Let me guide you through this process right now, because the only way to understand it is to experience it. Bring to mind something that's causing you emotional pain right now. Nothing overwhelming, maybe a relationship that's strained, a disappointment you're carrying, or a fear that visits you regularly. Just touch the edge of that feeling and notice where it lives in your body. Does it sit in your chest like a heavy stone? In your throat like a tight knot? In your stomach like churning anxiety? Don't try to change the sensation, just notice where it is and what it feels like. Now, instead of pushing the feeling away, breathe directly into that part of your body. Imagine your breath as warm, golden light flowing to that area. You're not trying to fix the pain or make it disappear. You're simply offering it your presence. As you breathe, say silently to yourself, "This is what pain feels like right now." Not "I am in pain," that makes you the pain. But this is what pain feels like, that makes you the observer of pain. There's a world of difference between those two perspectives. Continue breathing into the sensation. Notice if it shifts, moves, intensifies, or softens. Don't have any agenda about what should happen. You're simply being present with your own experience, the way you might sit quietly beside a friend who's crying. What you're doing right now is revolutionary. You're proving to your nervous system that you can feel pain without being destroyed by it. You're showing your heart that it's safe to feel fully because you're not going to abandon yourself in the process. This is how natural healing works. Not by avoiding the wound, but by creating the conditions where healing can occur. And the primary condition for emotional healing is presence. There's a profound difference between wallowing in pain and being present with it. Wallowing keeps you stuck in stories about the pain, why it happened, who's to blame, how unfair it all is. presence drops below the stories into the actual felt experience of the moment. When you're truly present with pain, you discover something surprising. It's not solid. It moves. It shifts. It has texture and temperature and rhythm. It's more like weather than like a wall. And just like weather, when you stop fighting it, it naturally moves through your system and clears. Consider how a child processes emotional pain. When a child falls and scrapes their knee, they cry fully, intensely, without holding back. They don't analyze their crying or judge themselves for feeling hurt. They simply feel what they feel, express it completely, and then, usually within minutes, they're ready to play again. Adults have lost this natural emotional intelligence. We've learned to complicate our pain with thoughts, stories, and judgments. We've forgotten that emotions are designed to be temporary visitors, not permanent residents. But you can reclaim this natural capacity, not by becoming childish, but by remembering the wisdom your emotional system had before you learned to fear it. The next time you feel overwhelmed by difficult emotions, try this simple practice. Set a timer for just 5 minutes. Give yourself permission to feel whatever is present for exactly that long, without trying to fix it, or understand it, or make it go away. Breathe slowly and deeply. Let your exhales be longer than your inhales. This signals safety to your nervous system. Place both hands on your heart and imagine breathing directly into that space. If thoughts arise about the pain, stories about why you shouldn't feel this way, or how to solve the problem, gently return your attention to the actual sensation in your body. You're not thinking your way through this. You're feeling your way through it. Often, what we call unbearable pain is actually quite bearable when we stop adding layers of resistance to it. The raw sensation of sadness, fear, or anger is usually manageable. It's our thoughts about those feelings that make them seem impossible to handle. This sadness means I'm weak. This anxiety means something terrible will happen. This loneliness means no one will ever love me. These stories transform temporary emotional weather into permanent psychological climate. But when you drop below the stories and simply feel the actual sensations, you discover your capacity is much greater than you imagined. You can hold space for your own pain the way the ocean holds space for waves, vast, stable, unshaken by whatever moves across the surface. This doesn't mean becoming numb or detached. It means becoming present enough to feel without drowning, strong enough to open your heart without losing yourself, wise enough to know that your pain is information, not identity. Sometimes, people worry that if they really let themselves feel their pain, they'll never stop crying. But the opposite is usually true. When you finally give your pain permission to be felt fully, it often moves through much more quickly than when you're constantly fighting it. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The more force you use to keep it down, the more violently it explodes upward when your grip finally weakens. But if you let the ball float naturally on the surface, it bobs gently with the waves. Your emotions want to flow the same way. They're not trying to drown you. They're trying to move through you. But they can only complete their natural cycle when you stop interrupting the process with resistance. The Buddha taught that all phenomena arise, abide for a time, and then dissolve. This includes your most difficult emotions. Even your deepest grief will eventually lighten. Even your most persistent anxiety will shift. Even your loneliest moments will open into connection. But this natural dissolution can only happen when you work with your emotional system instead of against it. When you trust the process instead of trying to control it. When you remember that feeling, your feelings fully is not weakness, it's the highest form of courage. As you practice sitting with pain without drowning, something profound begins to shift. You stop being afraid of your own inner weather. You develop confidence in your ability to handle whatever arises. You realize that you don't need to fix yourself or your circumstances to be okay. You just need to be present with what is. This presence becomes your refuge, your medicine, your pathway through any storm. And as you sit with pain in this open, accepting way, you begin to notice something fascinating about the thoughts that arise around that pain. Often, the stories our minds tell about our pain are more painful than the pain itself. Your thoughts are convincing liars wearing truth's costume. Right now, as you listen to these words, there's probably a voice in your head commenting on what I just said. Maybe it's agreeing, yes, that's exactly right. Maybe it's skeptical, that sounds like nonsense. Maybe it's already wandering off to what you need to do later today. That voice, persistent, opinionated, never quite silent, has convinced you it's you. But it's not. You are not your thoughts any more than the sky is the clouds that pass through it. The sky doesn't become grey when storm clouds gather overhead. It doesn't turn white when fluffy cumulus clouds drift by on a summer afternoon. The sky remains vast, open, unchanging, a limitless space that can hold any weather without being touched by it. You are like that sky. And your thoughts are like clouds, some light and wispy, some dark and heavy, all of them temporary visitors moving through the spaciousness of your awareness. But somewhere along the way, you forgot this truth. You began identifying with every cloud that passed through, believing that the weather was who you were. When anxious thoughts appeared, you became an anxious person. When sad thoughts arose, you became a sad person. When critical thoughts dominated, you became self-critical. This is one of the most exhausting ways to live, constantly becoming whatever your mind happens to be thinking. The Buddha understood this deeply. He called the untrained mind a monkey mind, restless, chattering, jumping from branch to branch without ever settling anywhere. But he also taught that beneath all that mental noise is something profoundly still, aware, and peaceful. That stillness is your true nature. The awareness that watches thoughts come and go. The consciousness that remains steady, whether your mind is spinning with anxiety or flowing with creative ideas. Mental hygiene is as important as dental hygiene. Just as you brush your teeth daily to prevent decay, you can learn to clean your mental space to prevent the buildup of toxic thought patterns. But most people have never been taught how to maintain a healthy relationship with their own minds. We brush our teeth without becoming the toothbrush. We can observe our thoughts without becoming them. The key is learning to step back into the role of the witness rather than the participant in every mental drama that unfolds. Here's a simple practice that can revolutionize your relationship with your thoughts. For the next few minutes, I want you to become a thought watcher. Imagine you're sitting beside a gentle stream on a warm afternoon. The water is crystal clear, flowing steadily over smooth stones. Every now and then, a leaf falls from the trees above and lands on the water's surface. You watch as each leaf is carried downstream, appearing briefly in your view before floating around the bend and disappearing. Your thoughts are like those leaves. Some are green and fresh, pleasant thoughts about things you love. Some are brown and dry, old worries you've carried for months or years. Some are colourful and vibrant, creative ideas or exciting possibilities. Others might be dark or withered, fears, regrets, harsh judgments. But here's what's important. You don't have to jump into the stream and chase after every leaf. You can simply sit on the bank, watching them all float by with equal curiosity and detachment. Try this right now. Notice the next thought that arises in your mind. Instead of engaging with it or following its story, simply label it thinking. Don't judge the thought as good or bad. Don't try to stop it or change it. Just notice it, name it, and let it pass. Another thought will arise. Again, just notice, thinking. And another, thinking. You're training your attention to rest in the awareness that observes thoughts, rather than getting swept away by their content. This might feel strange at first, like stepping outside a movie you've been absorbed in and suddenly realizing you're in a theater. You've been so identified with the story playing in your mind that remembering you're the audience, not the actor, can feel disorienting. But this disorientation is actually freedom beginning to dawn. You're not your thoughts, you're the space they pass through. This isn't just a philosophical concept. It's a lived reality you can experience right now. Notice that there's a part of you that remains completely still and aware even when your thoughts are racing. That stillness doesn't get anxious when anxious thoughts appear. It doesn't get sad when sad thoughts arise. It simply witnesses everything with equal openness. That witnessing awareness is who you really are. Not the temporary guest thoughts that visit your mental space, but the eternal host that welcomes them all. Once you begin to identify with this awareness, rather than with your thoughts, everything changes. You stop taking your mental commentary so seriously. You realize that just because you think something doesn't make it true. You discover that you have a choice about which thoughts to believe and which ones to let pass by, like clouds in the sky. The mind loves to create stories, especially dramatic ones. It will tell you that you're in terrible danger when you're perfectly safe. It will convince you that you're unloved when evidence of love surrounds you. It will insist that you're a failure when you're simply learning. But when you know you're the sky, not the weather, these stories lose their power to disturb your peace. You can hear the mind's commentary with compassion, but without believing every word. Think about dreams for a moment. While you're dreaming, everything seems completely real. You might be chased by monsters, flying through the air, or having impossible conversations with people from your past. In the dream, you never question any of it. But when you wake up, you immediately recognize, oh, that was just a dream. You don't spend the rest of the day worried about the dream monster or trying to figure out how you were flying. You understand that the dream experience, however vivid, wasn't reality. Thoughts work the same way. While you're identified with them, they seem absolutely real and important. But when you step back into awareness, you can see them for what they are, mental events arising and passing away in the spaciousness of consciousness. This doesn't mean all thoughts are meaningless or that you should ignore important information. It means learning to discern between thoughts that serve you and thoughts that simply create suffering. Between practical thinking that helps you navigate life and compulsive thinking that keeps you trapped in cycles of worry and rumination. When a practical thought arises, I need to call my doctor, or it's time to leave for my appointment, you can engage with it appropriately. When a compulsive thought appears, everyone thinks I'm weird or something terrible is going to happen, you can recognize it as mental weather and let it pass without taking it personally. Here's another powerful technique for working with difficult thoughts. When you notice your mind spinning a particularly convincing story about why you should feel bad, try adding this phrase to the beginning: I'm having the thought that. Instead of I'm such a failure, think I'm having the thought that I'm such a failure. Instead of nobody likes me, try I'm having the thought that nobody likes me. This simple addition creates immediate distance between you and your mental commentary. It reminds you that you're the observer of these thoughts, not their victim. As you practice this kind of mental hygiene consistently, something profound begins to shift. The constant chatter in your head doesn't necessarily get quieter, but it gets less compelling. You develop what the Buddhists call non-attachment to thoughts. You can hear them without being hooked by them. This creates space for something beautiful to emerge. When you're not constantly reacting to your mental commentary, you have access to deeper wisdom. Intuition can arise more easily when it's not competing with endless mental noise. Creativity flows more freely when it's not being judged by the inner critic. Love expands more naturally when it's not being blocked by fearful thoughts. You begin to live from a place of presence rather than from the stories your mind tells about the present. And from that presence, you can respond to life with clarity and wisdom rather than reacting from old thought patterns and conditioning. The Buddha taught that liberation comes not from having no thoughts, but from no longer being enslaved by thoughts. This is the freedom that's available to you right now, the freedom to use your mind as a tool rather than being used by it. Remember, thoughts are guests in the spacious home of your awareness. Some guests are pleasant, others difficult. But they're all temporary visitors. You don't have to throw them out forcefully or cling to the ones you like. You can simply offer them hospitality while remembering that you are the host, not the guest. Free from thought tyranny, liberated from the need to believe every story your mind creates, you can finally discover who you really are beneath all the mental commentary. And that discovery leads to perhaps the most healing realization of all, that the person you've been trying so hard to become already exists within you. You're not here to become someone else. You're here to remember who you've always been. Somewhere along the way, you learn to wear masks. Not the literal kind, but the invisible ones we put on to survive, to fit in, to be loved. The mask that says, "I'm fine," when you're falling apart inside. The mask that performs happiness to keep others comfortable. The mask that hides your sensitivity because the world told you it was weakness. You wore these masks so long that you forgot there was a face underneath. You became so skilled at being who others needed you to be that you lost track of who you actually are. And now, perhaps for the first time in years, you're feeling the weight of all that pretending. That exhaustion you feel, it's not from living your life. It's from living someone else's version of your life. But here's what the world doesn't want you to know. Authenticity isn't something you create. It's something you uncover. Like an archaeologist carefully brushing away layers of dust to reveal an ancient treasure that was always there, waiting to be discovered. The Buddha taught something radical about human nature. He said that every person is born with what he called Buddha nature, an innate perfection that can never be damaged or destroyed. Not perfection in the sense of never making mistakes, but perfection in the sense of being complete exactly as you are. Think about a seed buried in dark soil. That seed doesn't look at other plants and try to become them. An acorn doesn't struggle to become a rose. It doesn't read self-help books about how to be a better tree. It simply unfolds according to its own inner blueprint, trusting the intelligence that placed everything it needs within its tiny shell. Seeds don't try to become trees. They naturally unfold into what they've always been designed to be. You have that same inner blueprint. Beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the shoulds and supposed tos, beneath all the ways you've learned to contort yourself to meet other people's expectations, there's an authentic self that's been patiently waiting. This isn't about becoming perfect or enlightened or spiritually advanced. It's about becoming real. And real includes messy, uncertain, still figuring it out, beautifully human you. When you were very young, before the world taught you to doubt yourself, you knew exactly who you were. You laughed when things were funny without checking if it was appropriate. You cried when you were sad without apologizing for your feelings. You loved what you loved, fiercely, without shame. You spoke your truth simply, without calculating its effect on others. That child is still inside you. Not naive or immature, but authentic and unafraid. The journey back to yourself isn't about returning to childhood. It's about reclaiming the fearless honesty that's your birthright. But somewhere between childhood and now, you learn that being yourself might not be safe. Maybe you expressed excitement and were told to calm down. Maybe you showed sadness and were told to be strong. Maybe you shared your dreams and were told to be realistic. Slowly, carefully, you learn to edit yourself. Each edit was a small betrayal of your authentic nature. Not intentional, not malicious, but a betrayal nonetheless. And over time, these small betrayals accumulated until you could barely remember what your unedited self looked like. The good news is that your authentic self hasn't gone anywhere. It's been waiting patiently beneath all the layers, like a spring waiting for winter to end. And the moment you stop forcing yourself to be someone else, it begins to emerge naturally. This emergence rarely happens all at once. It's more like morning dawn, gradual, gentle, almost imperceptible at first. You might notice small things, a preference you'd forgotten you had, an opinion that feels genuinely yours, a way of moving through the world that feels less effortful. Maybe you realize you actually prefer quiet evenings to busy social gatherings, despite years of forcing yourself to be more outgoing. Maybe you discover that your sensitivity, which you've always seen as a flaw, is actually a gift that allows you to notice beauty and nuance others miss. Maybe you remember dreams you abandoned because they didn't fit someone else's idea of success. Each of these moments of recognition is sacred. It's your authentic self saying, "I'm still here. I never left. I was just waiting for you to stop pretending." Stop improving yourself. Start accepting yourself. This might be the most counterintuitive advice you'll ever hear in a world obsessed with self-optimization. But here's what the self-improvement industry doesn't want you to know. There's nothing wrong with you that needs fixing. You are not a project to be completed or a problem to be solved. You are a unique expression of consciousness, having a human experience, and that experience is valid exactly as it is. This doesn't mean you stop growing or learning or evolving. It means you grow from a foundation of self-acceptance rather than self-rejection. You learn because you're curious, not because you're inadequate. You evolve because expansion is natural to consciousness, not because your current self is somehow wrong. When you accept yourself as you are, something beautiful happens. The energy you've been spending on self-criticism becomes available for self-expression. The attention you've been using to monitor and adjust your personality can focus on actually living your life. The love you've been withholding until you become good enough can flow freely right now. Imagine a flower trying to become a different flower. A rose attempting to be a sunflower, constantly comparing its petals, wishing its stem were taller, feeling inadequate because it can't turn toward the sun the same way. How much energy would be wasted in that struggle? How much beauty would be missed? The rose's perfection lies not in becoming a sunflower, but in becoming fully, authentically rose. Its unique fragrance, its particular way of opening, its own rhythm of blooming, these aren't flaws to be corrected, but gifts to be celebrated. Your authenticity works the same way. Your particular way of seeing the world, your specific combination of strengths and vulnerabilities, your unique rhythm of being, these aren't mistakes to be fixed, but treasures to be honored. The Buddha nature that exists within you isn't somewhere far away waiting to be achieved. It's here now, breathing with your breath, beating with your heart, experiencing life through your eyes. It doesn't need to be earned or developed or purified. It needs to be recognized, welcomed, allowed. This recognition often begins with small acts of honesty. Speaking up when something doesn't feel right, instead of staying silent to keep the peace. Expressing genuine enthusiasm about something you love, even if others might think it's silly. Setting a boundary that honors your needs, even if it disappoints someone else. Each honest moment is a homecoming. Each authentic choice is a declaration. This is who I am. Each time you choose truth over performance, you strengthen the connection to your essential self. It's not always easy. The voices of conditioning are loud and persistent. They'll tell you that authenticity is selfish, that being yourself will lead to rejection, that you need to keep pretending to be safe. But these voices are echoes from the past, not truths about the present. The people who matter will love you more when you stop pretending to be someone else. The relationships that can't handle your authenticity weren't nourishing your true self anyway. The opportunities that require you to betray yourself aren't opportunities worth having. When you finally have the courage to be yourself, you give others permission to do the same. Your authenticity becomes a gift, not just to yourself, but to everyone whose life you touch. In a world full of masks, genuine presence is rare and precious. The journey back to yourself isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a practice you engage in moment by moment. Each time you choose honesty over image, each time you honor your feelings instead of dismissing them, each time you trust your inner knowing over external pressure, you return a little more to home. And home isn't a place you've never been. It's the place you never really left. Your authentic self has been with you all along, patient and loving, waiting for you to remember that you don't need to become anyone else to be worthy of love and belonging. This authenticity, this return to who you truly are, allows something beautiful to happen. When you stop fighting against your nature, your natural healing capacity emerges. Not the kind of healing that forces change, but the kind that allows transformation to unfold in its own perfect timing. You can't force a flower to bloom. You can't force a heart to heal. Yet this is exactly what most of us try to do when we're suffering. We push ourselves to feel better faster. We demand that our grief follow a timeline. We try to think our way out of depression, muscle through anxiety, and strong-arm our way back to happiness. But healing, real, lasting, transformational healing, doesn't respond to force. It responds to something much more gentle and infinitely more powerful, allowing. Think about how your body heals a cut on your finger. You don't consciously direct your cells to multiply or tell your blood to clot. You don't strain and effort to make new skin grow. You simply keep the wound clean, perhaps apply a bandage, and trust your body's innate intelligence to do what it knows how to do. Your emotional and spiritual healing works exactly the same way. There's a wisdom within you that knows how to mend what's broken, how to integrate difficult experiences, how to transform pain into wisdom. But this wisdom can only operate when you stop interfering with its natural process. We live in a culture that worships control and instant results. We've been taught that healing is something we do rather than something we allow. We approach our pain like a problem to be solved, our sadness like an enemy to be defeated, our anxiety like a glitch to be debugged. But what if your approach to healing has been backwards? What if the very effort to fix yourself is preventing the natural healing that wants to occur? Healing isn't something you do, it's something you allow. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on your well-being. It means learning the difference between helpful action and forceful interference. It means creating conditions that support natural healing rather than trying to manufacture healing through willpower alone. Consider how a river flows toward the ocean. It doesn't strain or struggle against the landscape. When it encounters a boulder, it doesn't try to move the rock, it flows around it. When it reaches a cliff, it doesn't fight gravity, it becomes a waterfall. The river's power comes not from force, but from persistent, gentle movement in alignment with natural laws. Your healing can flow the same way, not by forcing change, but by moving with the natural currents of your own wisdom. Not by fighting your pain, but by creating space for it to transform in its own timing. But how do you allow healing when every instinct tells you to do something, fix something, change something? How do you trust a process you can't see or control? It begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. Instead of seeing yourself as broken and needing repair, you begin to see yourself as healing and needing space. Instead of approaching your pain as an enemy, you start relating to it as information. Instead of demanding that healing happen on your schedule, you begin to trust that healing has its own perfect timing. Watch how nature demonstrates this principle everywhere. Trees don't force themselves to grow. They grow in response to light, water, and nutrients. Seasons don't hurry their transitions. Spring emerges when conditions are right, not when we're tired of winter. Seeds don't rush their sprouting. They wait in the dark soil until something deep within says, now. Your healing follows these same organic rhythms. There are seasons of breakdown and seasons of breakthrough. Times when you need to rest in the darkness like a seed, and times when you're ready to push through the soil into light. Periods of intense growth and periods of gentle integration. Fighting these natural cycles is like trying to make winter become spring through force of will. It doesn't work, and it exhausts you in the process. Sacred allowing means honoring where you are in your healing journey without demanding that you be somewhere else. If you're in a season of grief, you allow yourself to grieve fully rather than rushing toward acceptance. If you're in a time of confusion, you sit with not knowing rather than forcing premature clarity. If you're experiencing anger, you create safe space for that fire to burn rather than immediately trying to extinguish it. This doesn't mean wallowing or getting stuck in difficult emotions. It means trusting that emotions, like weather, are designed to move through your system when they're not blocked by resistance. Think about what happens when you try to dam a river. The water doesn't disappear. It builds up pressure behind the dam until eventually something gives way, often explosively. But when you allow the river to flow freely, it carves beautiful channels, nourishes the landscape, and eventually reaches the sea. Your emotions work the same way. When you dam them up with resistance, they build pressure and often explode in unexpected ways. But when you allow them to flow naturally, they move through your system, leaving gifts of insight and compassion in their wake. Here's a practice that can help you cultivate this sacred allowing in your daily life. When you notice yourself in pain, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, pause and ask yourself, what am I trying to force right now? Maybe you're trying to force yourself to feel grateful when you're actually feeling sad. Maybe you're pushing yourself to be productive when your body is asking for rest. Maybe you're demanding that a difficult situation resolve immediately when it needs time to unfold. Once you identify what you're forcing, try a different approach. Instead of pushing against what is, breathe into it. Instead of demanding change, offer presence. Instead of forcing healing, create conditions where healing can occur naturally. These conditions are surprisingly simple. Rest when you're tired instead of forcing productivity. Feel your feelings instead of immediately trying to fix them. Move your body gently instead of pushing through pain. Eat nourishing food when you're hungry instead of restricting or forcing. Speak kindly to yourself instead of using harsh criticism as motivation. Each of these choices is an act of sacred allowing. You're saying to your system, I trust your wisdom. I trust your timing. I trust your process. The Buddha taught that all suffering comes from resistance to what is. Not from what is itself, but from our fighting against it. When you stop fighting your experience and start allowing it, suffering naturally begins to transform. This transformation rarely looks like you think it will. It doesn't usually mean that pain disappears or problems solve themselves overnight. Instead, it means that your relationship to difficulty changes. You develop what the Buddhists call equanimity, the ability to remain balanced and present regardless of what's happening. You stop taking your temporary experiences so personally. You realize that emotions, thoughts, and circumstances are like weather, constantly changing, inherently temporary. You learn to be like a mountain in a storm, affected by the weather, but not fundamentally disturbed by it. This doesn't make you cold or detached. If anything, it makes you more open, more compassionate, more fully present. When you're not fighting your own experience, you have energy available to truly meet life as it unfolds. Sacred allowing also means accepting help when it's offered. So many of us have learned to be fiercely independent, believing that asking for support is weakness. But isolation is often another form of force, forcing yourself to heal alone when healing naturally happens in relationship. A tree doesn't try to grow without soil, water, or sunlight. It allows itself to be nourished by its environment. You can allow yourself to be nourished by the love, wisdom, and support that surround you. This might mean accepting a friend's offer to bring you dinner when you're struggling. It might mean allowing yourself to cry in someone's presence instead of always holding it together. It might mean seeking professional help when your own resources feel insufficient. None of these is giving up or admitting defeat. They're recognizing that healing is often a community process, not a solo journey. As you practice sacred allowing, you begin to notice something profound. The same intelligence that grows your hair and beats your heart and heals your cuts is also working on deeper levels. It's integrating your experiences, weaving meaning from chaos, and gradually opening your heart to greater love and wisdom. But this intelligence can only work when you get out of its way. When you stop micromanaging your healing and start trusting the process. When you allow transformation to happen in its own perfect timing, rather than demanding immediate results. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is nothing at all. Just rest. Just breathe. Just be present with what is, without trying to change it. Trust that in the spaciousness of your allowing, something is always healing, always transforming, always moving you toward greater wholeness. This doesn't mean you become passive about your life. It means you learn to act from alignment rather than desperation, from wisdom rather than fear, from trust rather than force. The actions that emerge from sacred allowing are often more effective than those driven by forcing, because they're in harmony with natural rhythms and deeper intelligence. You begin to live as nature lives, not by fighting against life, but by flowing with it. In this allowing, in this trust, in this gentle surrender to what wants to emerge, you discover something extraordinary. You find that beneath all the noise and struggle, there's a profound stillness that's been waiting patiently for your return. A source of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, a well of wisdom that never runs dry. In a noisy world, stillness is rebellion. Right now, as you listen to these words, notice how rare this moment is. How often do you actually sit in complete presence without scrolling, without planning, without the background hum of constant doing? In a world addicted to motion, noise, and endless stimulation, choosing stillness is perhaps the most radical act you can perform. We've been taught that stillness is emptiness, that silence is boredom, that doing nothing is wasting time. But what if we've had it backwards? What if stillness isn't the absence of life, but the source of it? Seeds germinate in dark silence, not in noise and light. The most profound transformations happen in quiet places, hidden from view. Your heart beats in the silence between thoughts. Your breath flows in the space between words. And your deepest healing occurs not in the chaos of trying to fix yourself, but in the profound rest of simply being. This is where we've been journeying together through these 12 teachings, toward this moment of recognition that everything you've been seeking has been waiting for you in stillness. Remember when we explored how suffering can be a teacher? That teaching becomes clear in stillness when you stop running from pain long enough to hear what it's trying to tell you. Remember learning that emotions are temporary weather. You can only experience that truth in the spacious stillness that remains unchanging while feelings come and go. The loneliness we discussed, the attachments you've been asked to release, the present moment where peace lives. All of these discoveries are only possible when you stop the constant motion and rest in the quiet center of your being. Stillness isn't meditation. It's not a technique or a practice you do for 20 minutes and then leave behind. Stillness is your natural state, the ground of consciousness itself, always available beneath whatever activity or emotion is moving through your life. But accessing this stillness requires something our culture rarely teaches: the courage to subtract rather than add. You don't need to add anything to find peace. You need to subtract noise. Not just external noise, though that matters too, but the internal noise that never stops, the constant commentary, the endless planning, the persistent worry about what might happen or regret about what did happen. The noise of believing you need to become someone different to be worthy of love. The noise of fighting your own experience instead of meeting it with presence. When you subtract this noise, what remains isn't emptiness. What remains is the profound fullness of pure awareness, awake, alive, completely present, needing nothing to be complete. Think about the space between musical notes. Without that silence, music would just be noise. The pauses between notes aren't empty spaces to be filled. They're essential parts of the melody that give meaning to every sound. Your life works the same way. The spaces between activities, the quiet moments between conversations, the stillness between thoughts, these aren't voids to be filled with busyness. They're sacred pauses where life regenerates, where wisdom arises, where your system naturally recalibrates toward balance. But we've become afraid of these spaces. We fill every quiet moment with podcasts, every pause with phone scrolling, every silence with mental chatter. We've forgotten that in the beginning was not the word, but the silence from which all words emerge. Here's how you can begin reclaiming this stillness, right here, right now. You don't need a meditation cushion or a silent retreat. You just need to remember that stillness is always available, no matter where you are or what you're doing. Start with your breath, but not as something to control or improve. Simply notice that breath is happening without your effort. Feel the natural pause at the end of each exhale, that tiny space of complete stillness before the next breath begins. Rest in that pause, not trying to make it longer or different, just appreciating the natural stillness that's already there. Now, expand your awareness to include the stillness around you. Even if you're in a busy place, there's stillness in the spaces between sounds. There's quiet in the distance between you and whatever you're looking at. There's silence in the air that holds all sounds but isn't disturbed by any of them. You can find this stillness while walking, in the moment of balance between steps. You can touch it while speaking, in the pause between sentences. You can access it in the middle of the busiest day, in the space between thoughts, the gap between one activity and the next. This isn't about creating more stillness. It's about recognizing the stillness that's always been here, always been available, always been waiting for your return. The Buddha's great discovery wasn't something he added to himself through years of practice. It was something he recognized as already present, the unshakable peace that exists beneath every changing condition. He called it Buddha nature, the awakened awareness that is your deepest identity. This same awareness is what's been listening to these teachings, what's been present through every moment of your life, what remains steady, whether you're happy or sad, successful or struggling, connected or alone. When you rest in this awareness, when you stop trying to improve or fix or change yourself and simply be present with what is, something profound happens. All the teachings we've explored together reveal themselves not as concepts to understand, but as lived realities to embody. You realize that suffering truly was your teacher, guiding you toward this moment of presence. You experience emotions as temporary weather moving through the unchanging sky of awareness. Loneliness transforms into spaciousness. Attachments naturally loosen when you're rooted in something that can never be lost. The present moment stops being a place you try to get to and becomes the place you recognize you've never left. The brokenness you thought defined you reveals itself as breaking open into greater wholeness. Self-love stops being something you work toward and becomes something you remember you've always deserved. You discover that you can sit with pain without drowning because stillness is deeper than any temporary experience. Your thoughts lose their grip because you recognize yourself as the space they move through. The authentic self you thought you needed to become reveals itself as who you've always been, beneath all the pretending. Healing stops being something you force and becomes something you allow, because stillness creates the perfect conditions for natural transformation. And in this stillness, you find the source of everything: peace, love, wisdom, compassion, strength. Not as achievements to earn, but as qualities of the awareness you are. This is the ultimate medicine, not adding more to your life, but recognizing the fullness that's always been here. Not becoming someone different, but remembering who you've always been beneath all the stories. Not healing yourself, but resting in the wholeness that was never actually broken. In stillness, you discover that you are not the seeker, but what has been sought. Not the one who needs healing, but the healing presence itself. Not separate from peace, but peace aware of itself. This recognition doesn't require years of practice or perfect circumstances. It can dawn in this very moment, in the space between these words, in the silence that holds all sounds. As our journey together comes to a close, remember that it's also a beginning. Every moment offers you the choice to return to stillness, to rest in the awareness that you are, to remember the peace that needs nothing to be complete. The 12 teachings we've explored are not concepts to remember, but doorways to walk through. Each one leads to the same destination, this moment, this presence, this stillness, where healing naturally occurs, where love flows freely, where wisdom arises without effort. You don't need to carry these teachings like a burden or practice them like homework. Simply return, again and again, to the stillness where they all converge. Return to the silence between your thoughts. Return to the peace between your breaths. Return to the awareness that's been with you all along. In that returning, you'll find that everything you've been seeking has been quietly waiting. Not in some distant future when you're healed or enlightened or perfect, but here, now, in the profound stillness that is your true home. This is where everything begins and where everything returns. This is the source of healing, the ground of love, the wellspring of wisdom. This is what you are beneath every story, beyond every experience, deeper than every emotion. Welcome home. The golden thread woven through all 12 teachings is this: you already have everything you need. Not as concepts to master, but as wisdom to remember. Your natural healing lifestyle is beautifully simple. Breathe with your pain instead of fighting it. Rest in stillness for a few moments each day. Speak to yourself with the kindness you'd offer a dear friend. Trust your process, even when you can't see the path ahead. You're now part of an ancient wisdom lineage stretching back 2,500 years. Millions of hearts who've discovered that healing isn't a destination, it's how you travel. Thank you for having the courage to sit with these teachings, to face your pain with presence, to choose healing over hiding. Your willingness to heal is a gift to everyone whose life you touch. The Buddha once said, "Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened." Your healing lights candles for others. Your peace ripples outward in ways you may never see. If these teachings have served you, consider sharing them with someone who might need this gentle reminder of their inherent wholeness. Your healing heals the world. Rest in the stillness you are. Rest in the peace you've always been.